Thank you so much, Breck. Good morning, everybody. Yes, loving the energy. Thank you for having me. Yes. So we're going to kick off. So this session is all about making moments matter and looking at how we can leverage earned media to really drive strategic impact for your organizations. So a little bit about me. I'm Jess Bryant. I'm currently the head of media, communications, brand, PR at Save the Children Canada. Save the Children is one of the world's first and leading independent organizations for children. We operate in over 115 countries around the world, including in the US and in Canada as well. I've been there for about 7 years. Prior to that, I also worked at Save the Children in the UK, the UN, the BBC, and different organizations. So I've been working in the not-for-profit space for about 15 years now. And I love all things media and brand, so please do connect with me. That's a link to my LinkedIn. I really love to chat about all of these things, and it's been so fantastic connecting with all of you the last couple of days, so please do keep in touch. And I hope that you find this helpful. So I really want to kick off and get a read of the room as to how many of you currently leverage earned media. Do you have a strategy in-house? So please, if you don't mind, just completing the Slido quiz. And do you have an in-house earned media strategy? Okay, 50-50, interesting. Oh, almost, okay. Good, so I'm really hopeful that this presentation today will help you get an understanding of how earned media can help you to leverage your existing work that you're doing, and that you do not need a philosophical PhD in media or journalism to be able to leverage earned media to advance your goals in your organization, for fundraising, for advocacy, and brand awareness. The next question? Oh, perfect. Do you have a dedicated person in-house that helps you to manage your media? Even if you don't have a strategy, do you have someone that is able to understand the media landscape and jump on those opportunities if they arise, or even be proactive in managing your media? Okay, so a lot more of you do have somebody in-house that can support with media than not. Do you have a trained media spokesperson? Do you have somebody in your organization that is able to do media interviews, speak to the media, and confidently convey what your organization is doing? Okay, so more of you you might not have a strategy, but you have someone in-house that can support you with media and speak to the news should those opportunities come. Awesome, good. So, this first section is going to talk about turning media into long-term engagement. How can you be proactive in reaching out to the media and then riding those waves? So when you secure media, how can you turn that into much more long-term engagement to engage your donors, engage your audiences, and really convert them into donors? So why does earned media matter? High engagement. Earned media can generate much more long-term trusted engagement with your audiences compared to paid media. Those third-party trusted sources are really the go-to for a lot of people for trusted information, and that is what is also going to raise a lot more awareness for your organization. And that coverage will continue to drive awareness the more that it gets pushed out, and much longer after that initial interaction that you may have on the interview. And as I mentioned, it also helps to build trust. So 92% on average of consumers will trust earned media over a paid advertisement. So it really is worth that time and investment to build those relationships with the media so you can start to have a much more credible voice to your potential audiences, and it really builds that authenticity and that credibility to your organization. And it's also much more cost efficient because it's free. You do not have to pay for these media opportunities when you're earning them through understanding what makes your organization newsworthy. You can have up to 5 times more cost-efficient return on your investment of time and resources to secure this paid media opportunity. So it really, again, helps to build your brand awareness, and then you want to be able to drive that traffic back to your website, which we'll talk a little bit more later. So I want to share a little bit about our journey at Save the Children, because Save the Children Canada specifically. So I joined the organization in 2017, and despite Save the Children being a huge global brand that has a big presence, we had not invested in brand, fundraising, marketing whatsoever. In 2017, I think 95% of our funding came from one single source, which was the Government of Canada. So we really needed to build our brand. We had very low brand awareness. We were kind of known as a maternal health organization. People didn't know our name. They didn't know what we do, who we were. And that was a shock for me coming from England, because everybody, I think 95% of the population in England knows Save the Children and knows our brand and what we do. So big task. Luckily, I had a strong CEO who understood brand and understood media, and then also the board. They both worked for CBC, which is Canada's biggest broadcaster, and they understood what we needed to do to grow the organization, which was to invest in brand, but we didn't have any funding or resources or many people to be able to do that. So it was really just me, and I had a very small team of 2 overseeing all communications, PR, website, social media, all of those things. But we knew that we could prioritize investing in brand and media. So we did some research. We were able to invest in some market research to understand where the Canadian public was at. What were the issues that they cared about? What were the issues that they wanted to support? And where did they match and align with us as an organization and who we are and what we do? And as Save the Children, we do have a huge array of programming. We do humanitarian programming and development programming. And so what this research showed us was that Canadians cared about supporting and donating to children in crisis. So we decided to take that decision to really focus and drill down on our brand positioning to be the go-to for Canadians to support children in crisis. And so we really aligned as an organization across all channels, fundraising, marketing, brand, but also decided to really focus on getting earned media to grow our brand awareness, our familiarity. We had a very low trust as well, so we were coming from a trust deficit space at that time. And so 2017 to 2020, we really focused on becoming that go-to for the media for children in crisis. So we had to position ourselves as a thought leader, as a go-to for the media. When an opportunity comes, the media act very, very quickly. So you have to be ready to have your spokespeople, to have your messaging, to be able to respond to those opportunities. So we reached out to the media, we did our research, and we really prioritized and focused on broadcast media, because we knew that broadcast media, having limited time, we would get the most reach with focusing on the big broadcast media. So that really helped us to grow organically our share of voice over those 3 years. It does take time to be able to grow that positioning, but we did start to become the go-to for media in times of crisis. And so come to 2021, between 2021 and 2023, still a team of 3 people. We did not grow, but we really focused on the stories that we were trying to tell and network with journalists, and we became the number 2 share of voice against our main competitors and peers in the space to really own that space of children in crisis in the Canadian media. And at the end of 2023, we did hire a full-time media manager who was able to leverage all of that groundwork that we'd done to position Save the Children Canada, and we became the number 1 share of voice in the Canadian media market. So what does that mean for us, and what does that look like? So we still continue to focus very much on children in crisis, but we have started now to kind of diversify and start to hunker down on those more kind of niche medias to really diversify our audiences. But we were able to gain nearly 5,500 total earned mentions across media, which is online, print, broadcast, We use Cision to monitor our media, which really helps to ensure that we're measuring the results of that. And that means a 2.1 billion reach of audiences. So there's only 30 million people in Canada, but the frequency and the rate at which we were able to secure that media coverage and the number of times we were able to reach people was a 2.1 billion audience, and then that also means an almost 20 million ad equivalent value. So the value and the return on investment of our time was really significant, and this has also led into our brand results. So we've increased our brand awareness massively. Our focus was trust. We really wanted to increase our trust, so we increased that by 12%, which is really hard to do organically with no investment. And we've also moved our consideration points more than any of our competitors in the market as well. So, and really most of that is down to earned media. That's our CEO now on the CBC, and he's a big champion he's a former journalist, and he is a big champion for media. So when an opportunity comes, he is willing and ready to drop everything and go and jump on that interview, and that is an important piece that you need to get your spokespeople ready and able to jump on those media interviews. So I want to share just a couple of examples of what does this look like in practice. As I said, you have to be ready, kind of willing and able and prepared to jump on these media interviews. So this is one example of our US team who responded domestically to the Kentucky floods in 2022. As I mentioned, we do have domestic programming. Our programming in the US mainly focus on food security and some education programming, but we do have some emergency response domestic programming. And we picked this one specifically because we were able to really track how the media coverage drove a huge spike in fundraising efforts. So we had teams already on the ground in Kentucky who were personally affected by the floods, but also able to be positioned to respond to the crisis. And so in an emergency especially, or when a news moment happens, you have to be ready to go very quickly and be first out the gate to be able to get that coverage. So we had teams on the ground who were responding, and we were able to leverage their personal stories and their personal experiences to gain media coverage. I would say on average in a disaster like this, we'd maybe get 90 to 100 hits, and we got over 200 media hits with this crisis. And that was without Jennifer Garner. So Jennifer Garner is on our board, and she's a huge advocate and champion for our cause and the work that we do. And she did go to Kentucky, and she was able to secure a spot on the Today Show, which obviously drove huge coverage, huge numbers, and traffic to our website. So our fundraising for this crisis was, I think, 3 times the average of what we would raise for such a crisis. And when you think about the longevity, because often these things kind of come and go in the waves of the media, and media is very interested at the beginning, but then the crisis is still ongoing 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later. And so what Jennifer did was she organized with the Today Show to go back 6 months later to review what we'd been doing, and was really able to talk about the impact that the organization had had to support the children and the families affected by this crisis. And that again drove huge spikes in traffic to our website and funding for the crisis. So it's great if you have a celebrity or someone who's really can get that hook with the media. There are certain things that you have to do as an organization to really secure that media hook, and having a celebrity obviously helps, but just being local, and really it was the stories that our colleagues were able to share, which is what really humanized the issue, and is something that the media really look for as well. So you don't always need a big celebrity to be able to get interest and pique that interest of journalists. Another example that I want to share in how to leverage media relates to corporate partnerships. So as I mentioned, Save the Children was a very unknown organization. We had pretty much one single source of donor. And so we've really wanted to grow our corporate partnerships in Canada. We have lots of kind of global partnerships, but really focusing on Canadian companies. And it's hard to build those relationships with corporate partners. It takes a very long time, especially when you don't have strong brand awareness or brand trust or familiarity. And so last year, with the crisis in Gaza and the region, we were one of the first and only organizations in Canada to speak out about what was happening to children. We are an impartial humanitarian organization, and so we were able to stand on our values as an organization and be bold and outspoken about what was happening to children. And that media visibility was huge because nobody else was speaking, and we were able to really share the stories of what was happening to our colleagues and children and family on the ground and in the region. And so we aligned that with our strategic outreach and placed strategic kind of media pieces in places where we knew that our corporate partners would be, but also the employees of these companies are watching the news and seeing what's happening. So that really engaged the employees of these organizations. And so these are some of the results from our media coverage around the Gaza and regional crisis. We maintained a 39% share of voice in the media across the sort of 18 months that we were covering the crisis, and that led to 6 new corporate partners. Often we maybe have 1, 2, but to get 6 new corporate partners proactively come to us to say, and what was important about this was they anecdotally referenced the media coverage that they were seeing and the stories they were hearing in the news, and saw that Save the Children have been active in Palestine for over 60 years, so we had a long history of working there and in the region. But for that was really meaningful and built that trust and credibility with those corporate partners. And we raised over $800,000 through those partnerships, and that was also driven by employee giving. So it was the employees of some of these organizations that were really passionate about the cause and what we were doing to help children, that they drove that initiative within the organizations. And they were both donating directly as a corporate, but the employees were also personally donating, and the corporation was matching those donations. And so that combined has led to a long-term partnership that we now have with a lot of these corporations. They want to continue supporting us, and the employees are driving a lot of that traction as well. Oops. Okay. So this part, I want to talk a little bit more about how you can get your organizations ready for the media, whether you have a media person in-house or not. There are some really simple, basic things that you can do to be able to leverage media, and we're all marketers in the room, fundraisers, and we all know the power of storytelling, and that is no different in the media. The power of storytelling and humanizing issues is what really cuts through and will pique the interest of a journalist who may be interested in your covering the issues that you're working on. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. So the 3 things outside of understanding, what is news and what kind of drives a media story. Everyone has a very important cause, and lots of people should care, but you do need to have that kind of angle and a hook to be able to secure media coverage. But you really do need to have that trained spokesperson, someone who is willing and able to be able to represent the organization effectively and share clearly and simply in layperson's terms what your organization is doing and why people should care, and why this is relevant to the audience or who is watching the news. The second thing is really, again, having those 3 key messages. What is happening? Why are you relevant to the issue that the news is presenting? What are you doing about it? And then how can the public help? That's often, especially in times of emergencies and crisis, they're the 3 kind of standard questions that the media will ask you. So it's really important that you're ready and able to be able to speak to that and be really clear and consistent. And then having your media contacts. It is important to be able to build those relationships, and that the media know how to contact you and make it very simple, easy to do so. As I mentioned, we use a database called Cision. There's lots of others out there like Meltwater and others. They do help you be able to build your media lists and build your media contacts very easily. They keep them up to date. The media world is always changing. People are moving to different beats. So it is really important for you to know who your contacts are at the different media outlets and what it is that they're covering. So you can easily reach out to them and they can contact you, have your contacts on your website, and just keep those lists up to date so that when you have something new or significant or newsy to share, you're really easily able to just ping them a press release or a statement, and then they can just leverage that and go from there. So those are the kind of 3 key things that you really need to do to be media ready. As I mentioned, storytelling is at the heart of the news and the media, and being able to articulate and communicate your cause. I was trying to find a strong quote that really represents this, and I felt that these were always really strong. But stories really are the way that people make sense of the world and what is happening around them, and you can tap into the hearts and the minds of your audience and the public when you are in the media and anecdotally share what is happening. And that is what's really going to drive that deeper sense of inspiring action. And so it really helps to create that connection, to separate that maybe distance from what is happening to an issue or something that might not impact somebody personally, but you can cut through and make sure that they are really understanding and resonating, and you want to tap into their hearts and their minds so that they want to take action and support your cause. So having those stories, I think stories can motivate and increase donations by up to 25%. So really having that bank of stories and anecdotes that you can share when you're going into a media interview and be able to weave those into your key messages is a really critical tactic that you need to implement to be able to ensure that people then want to donate to your cause and go to your website. And one of the biggest key messages that you need to have it also is how can people help and drive them to your website. Have your URL. You can't even imagine how many times people go on the media and do not mention your organization's name or your website. So it's so important that you really drill that in to your media spokesperson to make sure that that is one of the first things that they get out there in their messaging. And then how do we leverage this beyond that one-time moment of a media interview? You know, so really about, yes, getting your name out there, making sure that you share your URL and drive that traffic. And I spoke earlier a little bit about positioning and how we as Save the Children Canada really drilled down on what it is that we wanted to be known for. So really think about how you want to focus your energies and where you want to be focusing your energies and be known for something so that you can position yourself and become that go-to for the media and stand out. So you can leverage other channels like social media, all of your other communications, all of your other marketing to have consistency across your messaging so that it brings more relevance and credibility to when the media is coming to you. They'll see on your website, they'll see on your CEO or your ED's social media that you really are an expert in that field. And that's how we get a lot of journalists coming to us is through social media like X and Facebook. And so it's really important to be active on those channels and sharing your thought leadership there and having that multiple touch point integration. So once you've secured the media coverage, you can share that with your face-to-face teams. You could, you know, they can, when they're speaking to the public, reference, you know, did you see our CEO on CBC the other day talking about XYZ issue? You can reference it in your direct mail pieces. You can use it as an opportunity to email your database to update them on certain crises or issues. And so making sure that you can really integrate that with all of your marketing and communication and fundraising teams is a really strong way to, again, further build your trust and your credibility with your donors. We often share this with our board as well. We'll send regular media updates to the board, and then they'll further amplify that coverage as well. And tech, we can all leverage tech. So I mentioned the Cision database and how we can leverage technology to use those data and insights to inform our media strategies. So really understanding and following the news cycles, leveraging those. And you don't have to invest in a database. You can leverage social media to keep you informed, Google Alerts. You know, there's other ways that don't cost a lot of money to keep you informed on what's happening in the news or what might be coming in the news that's relevant to your cause and your issues. And use those insights to inform your media strategy and where you're going to spend your time in investing time in reaching out to journalists. and building those connections, and keeping up to date with who's who, and tracking and measuring that impact. That's really valuable, especially if you're wanting to try and get buy-in with leadership who might not understand brand or understand the value of earned media. It has taken quite a long time for Save the Children to be able to really track the value of media, the media efforts we're doing, and how they truly relate to fundraising, because it's not always so direct. So using your website and those sorts of platforms to leverage that as well, and sharing, we get very high engagement on news articles on our social media platforms. It's one of the biggest things that our donors and our supporters engage with. So it's really good content as well. And make sure that your website is ready. So when you have that media interview, you have a banner on your website, you have relevant content on your website, and that it's very clear and consistent in terms of the messaging and the content that you have across those platforms, and optimize your SEO, to drive that traffic and make it a very smooth process. And I have learned that HubSpot, we don't use HubSpot, and I'm really keen to do so because I understand that HubSpot is a really great tool to be able to help you leverage that flow of the user journey and the donor journey when you're able to see those spikes in media coverage. And so it can help you track the impact of your earned media, measure those spikes, and then map the donor journey. And so automating some of those things and simplifying some of those things is obviously going to help you have a lot more impact on your investment on earned media. So we are going to put you in the hot seat. I'll just recap a little bit as to why media and strategies are so important, but it really helps you build that trust, expand your reach, and influence policy, advocacy, and increase donations. So putting in that time and effort to even just start small with reaching out to your local journalists is really going to have a huge impact for your overall cause and mission. So I would really love for everybody to join us in doing a test run of a media interview. Your voice matters. Anyone can be a spokesperson for the organization. It does not have to be the CEO or only the ED. Everyone, has a voice and has something to say about an organization. And these are the three main things that you need to be able to have your key messages. What is happening? What is your organization doing about it? And how can people help? Drive people to your website. So I would love for us to give this a go. We can do it in partners, but I know Matt was going to come up and do a bit of a test run through us so you can see how it would go. Thank you, Matt, for joining us today. And it's a really terrible time with this crisis going on and the floods that are happening in the area. Can you tell us a little bit about what is happening and what your team is seeing on the ground?
Yeah, right now, thank you for having me, by the way. Right now on the ground, we are helping to go home by home to evaluate, do a needs assessment, essentially. There's so many homes that have been flooded, and unfortunately, some of those people are uninsured or underinsured, and our team is on the ground doing a needs assessment to evaluate exactly what is the damage. So damage assessment, are they insured or uninsured, and what kind of assistance do they need? Do they need help removing debris? Do they need help finding emergency housing? Do they need help with electricity or power? So our team is currently on the ground doing an evaluation of that process.
Okay, yes, it sounds like a really difficult time. What are you hearing from some of the people that are directly impacted by this crisis?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that we have, just like so many communities, that there are two different camps. There's people who are insured and there's people who are uninsured or underinsured. And for our team is really focusing on trying to identify which are you in? Are you insured or are you underinsured or uninsured? And those people who lack insurance, they're really scared. They're scared because they need to remove the debris from their home. They're not sure who to reach out to. The contractors are all booked up by people who have insurance. And so there's an immediate, I gotta get this stuff out of my house, while also coping with the reality of having your home flooded, which is an overwhelming feeling for so many people.
Absolutely. And there's lots of people across America who really want to do something to help. What can people do? Is there anything that people can do to help?
Absolutely. The thing that we need most is donations. We need dollars. We oftentimes get flooded with supplies, and to be honest, sometimes those supplies do not meet the needs of the community. And when you make a contribution to our organization, we actually guarantee that we will use that for this disaster, or we will actually, if we exceed the monetary need, then we'll refund the unused portion back to you if you want, or apply it to another disaster. So we take the risk out of giving to our organization financially, but donations is what we need most right now.
And where can people go to make those donations?
Yeah, I am on the hot seat. Yes, thank you. Right now you can use our QR code, or you can text in HELP to 87872, which is right here on the bottom of the screen, or you can go to our website, teamrubiconusa.org.
Thank you. Easy.
I would give myself a C on that, if I'm honest.
You missed the name.
We didn't do well. Yeah, where could I have improved? Yeah, that's fair. We, the collective, yeah.
Definitely getting your name out there more and mentioning your name. When you could say our organization, just say Rubicon or Save the Children is doing. I'm hearing Save the Children colleagues. Get your name out there as many times as possible. But you hit the nail. You answered the question very directly. You were very clear. You were able to humanize the issue. You could have maybe, if you had a quote or an anecdote of what someone had said, but you were able to reference what you were hearing, what you were seeing. But the main point would have been to just get your name out there.
So I'm not promoted, but I'm not fired. But there is definitely a performance improvement plan in place. That's fair. Yes.
So I would love for you to just turn to your neighbor 5 minutes. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but there is no grading, there's no firing going to be happening. And then I would also love for someone to come up as a volunteer and do this. Everyone looks very scared and not keen. But it's an opportunity to, promote your organization and just have a think about what are the 3 key messages that you would want someone to know about your organization. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, for sure. Really good question. We do an Ipsos tracker. So we run a survey. We try to do a survey every year, but with budgets, we run it maybe every 2 years, sometimes every 3 years. And so they ask a portion of the population around brand awareness. So how many people know who we are, brand familiarity, what do people know what we do. And then we also have started to work with a PR firm just this year, and they do have some other tools to help us measure more, drill down in terms of that media coverage. But that Ipsos brand tracker looks at trust and what we're known for. So we really do drill down in the measurement. So we look at keywords. So Save the Children's name can be out there for lots of different issues, but we drill down further to look at where our name appears across those keywords like children in crisis, children's rights, gender equality, to really track the quality of the media coverage that we are getting. And we do also use Google Alerts and social media, social listening and things like that to, again, measure our brand awareness and familiarity as well. So in the Cision, the media monitoring service that we use, we pick our kind of 5 or 6 main competitors. So Plan, World Vision, UNICEF, CARE, and so they also track their media mentions as well. So when they're reporting, it shares our amount of coverage against their amount of coverage, and then that gives us the data on how much of a share of voice we have in a particular month or quarter or year compared to our competitors. So we have the leading share of voice, so we get the most media coverage against our competitors. I just want to say a huge thank you. It seems like you all had some good conversations, some good practice runs. And yes, please do reach out to me and connect with me and keep in touch. So thank you so much.